This is the inspiring story of Mary Smith Spencer, a survivor, abolitionist, candy maker, and revolutionary from Salem, Massachusetts. My third grade students, Shailise May German, Alaya Gomez Nunez, Alejandra Nadarin Guzman, and Natalia Saez Gonzalez at the Witchcraft Heights Elementary School in Salem, researched many different influential figures in Massachusetts history. They chose to write about Mary because of her deep connection to Salem, Mass., their hometown, because she was an abolitionist, which they've been learning a lot about this year, and also because she created what became the very first commercial candy company in the United States. We hope that you enjoy learning about this inspiring person as well.
The beginning of a brave story. Mary Smith was born in 1759 in Bunny, Nottinghamshire, England. Bunny is a small village that had a good schoolhouse which was next to the churchyard. It was a struggling village with only 60 houses. It was also the birthplace of St. George, patron saint of England. The school and church in the town of Bunny where Mary Smith was born. Mary got married in England to a man named Thomas Spencer, who was a Quaker. A Quaker is a group of people from the Religious Society of Friends. It was a Christian movement that started in England in the 1600s. Then she had a son who was named after her husband. Her son was born in 1792 in the town of Coventry. This is a painting of the Religious Society of Friends meeting house. A couple of years later, Mary Spencer bought a ship ticket to New York because she wanted to go to America. The ship Mary Spencer was on was named the Jupiter, and there were 73 people on board. She was 46 years old when the ship left London in March of 1805. A painting of the Jupiter built in 1813. It took days and days to get to New York, but in the middle of the trip, the ship got shipwrecked by an iceberg on April 6th at midnight on the southeast coast of Newfoundland. They were trapped in an ice field. She was one of the few survivors with 15 crew members and 31 passengers. But 27 passengers drowned, with the captain, Richard Law. After the ship hit the iceberg, the ship sank in half an hour. A common iceberg found in Newfoundland. Icebergs could grow as tall as a skyscraper and weigh up to 100,000 tons. Mary Spencer and the other passengers stood by holding on to parts of the broken ship. They were rescued by small fishing ships. It took weeks to get to land, but when they finally got to Salem, she was weak, tired, and had nothing at all. This is an image of shipwrecked survivors holding on to parts of the boat. From a barrel of sugar to a horse and buggy. After Mary survived the shipwreck in 1805, she was left in Salem with nothing, but she knew how to make candy. Her son Thomas got a candy recipe from a monk while he was on a ship from England to America. Then Thomas showed the recipe to his mom, and that is how Mary knew how to make Gibraltars, which was a very valuable skill in the 1800s. Mary had nothing, but her neighbors gifted her a barrel of sugar. She used that sugar to make candy and sold it in front of the first church in Salem. This is the first church of Salem where she sold her candies. And on the picture on the right, it's still the first church of Salem and it still stands here today. The ingredients she used to make the candy were sugar, water, cream of tartar, and cornstarch. Last but not least, she used lemon and mint flavoring because if she did not, the candy would taste like nothing, and candy is supposed to have flavoring. First, she melted the sugar in a pot, then added the other ingredients. Then, she let it sit out until it hardened just a bit. She used only a metal hook to stretch the candy as if it were taffy. After, she cut up the Gibraltars into small rhombus pieces and let them dry. On the picture on the left is them cutting the Gibraltars into rhombus pieces, and on the picture on the right is the actual hook Mary used to stretch the Gibraltars as if they were taffy. Finally, Mary put them in soft white paper packaging and sold them on the steps of different churches. That is how Mary made her Gibraltars. Today, Gibraltar candies are packaged similarly to how Mary did, wrapped in soft white paper. Mary's candy became so popular that she earned money and bought a horse and buggy. Mary sold her candy out of her wagon and delivered the candy from town to town out of firkins, which are large wooden barrels. The tasty, delicious candies were called Gibraltars, which were mint or lemon flavored. This is Mary's horse and buggy, and it's placed in the Peabody Essex Museum.
Slave saver, a risky business. Mary Spencer of Salem is an interesting historical person because she was against slavery. Thomas was her husband, and he was a Quaker, a group of Christians who were in violence. He was also known for arguing against slavery. They both went to lyceums, places where people met to talk about the problems of slavery and other issues that they were not happy about. Mary was against slavery, but she did not want to talk a lot about it in public because she did not want to get arrested. This is a picture of lyceums back in the 1800s. One of the reasons that Mary and other Quakers were against slavery was because enslaved people were the ones that produced sugar and plantation. The sugar that the enslaved people produced was what she made her delicious candy with. Sometimes she boycotted buying the sugar from the slaves, and she could not make her tasty Gibraltars. This is a drawing of slaves on sugar plantation. Mary was so deeply involved in abolitionist activities in Salem that she would transport slaves in her wagon to a safe place. She went from town to town selling her tasty candy. Her candy buggy had a hollow seat, so the slaves that escaped could hide there while she drove to sell her delicious candy. She gave her liberty and risked her freedom for the slaves because if a person was found being an abolitionist, they could go to jail. This is a photograph of how the jail in 1800s looked like in Salem.
Mary had a big role in the abolitionist movement. She, along with other important women like Sarah Parker Redmond and Charlotte Thornton, supported the Salem Female Anti-Slavery Society, which was the first female abolitionist group founded by the free black women in Massachusetts. They met in lyceums and halls to protest against slavery. Frederick Douglass, an important abolitionist, was also a speaker at some of these meetings. This is a statue of Frederick Douglass in New Bedford. Mary did more than help slaves escape. She also gave money and food to the slaves without the slave owner knowing, which was extremely hard to do because she could get caught. Mary was a risky slave saver, but she knew she had to help the people. This is a picture of Frederick Douglass and the female anti-slavery protesting against slavery.
The end of a brave story. After selling the candy from her buggy for a long time, Mary got enough money to buy a house in 1806. She lived on the second floor, and the first floor was used for her candy company. Her house and company was at 122 Derby Street in Salem, Massachusetts. When Mary was 71 years old, she gave her son Thomas the candy shop to keep making yummy Gibraltars. This is Mary's house and candy shop at 122 Derby Street in Salem today. One scary night in October 1835, on Halloween Eve, 400 very angry men surrounded Mary's house. Mary's son tried to block the door. They wanted the Spencers to turn in a Quaker who was visiting from England, or they would burn the house down. They thought the visitor was an abolitionist, but the visitor had already gone back to England. The angry men said they would take Mary's son, Thomas, instead, but he escaped. Mary was sick in bed. When one of the men came inside and burned the house down, Mary did not survive. Mary's son Thomas and his wife put her body in a coffin and brought her back to England to be buried. This is Mary's son Thomas and his wife in front of their home in Lincolnshire, England, where Mary Smith Spencer is buried. Not long after, Mary's son Thomas sold the candy shop to John Pepper and named it Ye Old Pepper Company. His family then sold the shop to the Birkinshaw family. The Birkinshaw family still own the Old Pepper Company today. This is a picture of George Birkinshaw Sr., Alice Birkinshaw, and George Birkinshaw Jr. Yield Pepper Company is still selling candy today. It is across from the House of Seven Gables on Derby Street. I know you might be wondering if people still make the candy like Mary did, and the answer is yes. Today, people do make it exactly how Mary did it. Even though we have new technology, but the people who work at Yield Pepper Company wanted to keep the tradition going. They still sell Mary's candy, the Gibraltars, and still make the candy the same way using the hook to stretch it out. This is a picture of George and Roger Birkinshaw making Mary's Gibraltars just like she did. So Mary had the very first candy shop in America, and her delicious candy is still famous and being sold today. In October, it is super busy because it's Halloween and almost everyone needs some candy to put at their front door. This is a picture of Yield Pepper Company at Halloween.
Mary Spencer era una revolucionaria persona por ser valiente. Ella era valiente por sobrevivir un naufragio. Ella también era valiente por esconder a esclavos en su carrito. Eso me hace a mí pensar que yo también puedo ser valiente y perseverar en dificultades, tiempos en la vida como ella lo hizo.
Mary Smith Spencer was a revolutionary person by being brave. Mary was brave by surviving the shipwreck. She was also brave by hiding slaves in her buggy. That makes me want to be brave and to persevere in difficult times in life, just like she did.
Mary Spencer es una persona muy inspiradora porque ella ayudó a los esclavos a escapar. Y ella también escondió un abolicionista en su casa. Esto me hace a mí querer ayudar a las personas que necesitan mi ayuda como ella lo hizo.
Mary Spencer is a bad person because she helped the slaves escape, and she hid an abolitionist in her home. This makes me want to help other people that need my help, just like she did.
Mary es disruptiva a los dueños de los esclavos porque ella ayudó a los esclavos y también no compró la azúcar que los esclavos produjo. Esto me quiere hacer ayudar a los gentes que están inmotivados.
Mary was disruptive to slave owners by saving slaves and boycotted sugar that the slaves produced. That makes me want to be disruptive and stand up to the people who are getting bullied.
Una cosa que fue visionario de Mary fue que ella quería los esclavos a ser libres y ella ayudó un poquito de ellos también. Otra cosa que fue visionario de Mary fue que ella sabía que vendiendo su dulce para que ella puede sobrevivir, esto me siente como yo puedo hacer todo como ganar un juego de campeonato de soccer.
Mary was a visionary because she wanted slaves to be free, and Mary did help some slaves. She was also visionary because she knew that selling candy would help her survive. This makes me feel like I can do anything, like win a soccer championship.